Welcome. Greetings from the future, tales from the metaverse. Welcome to our virtual talk show where we talk about things related to the metaverse. Today, we're going to be doing something slightly different. We're going to bring one of our members of the team on stage, or actually here behind the beautiful counter that we have here. Jolly, who is normally recording, will be replacing me, and I'm going to sit in Jolly's chair and talk about AI art.
Exactly, that's what's going to happen today. Because we are very lucky, John is our fellow member of the Virtual Film Company, and he can tell us a lot about this topic, AI art, because he created quite some of them. We will ask him what he did here, and this is our show, Greetings from the Future, Tales from the Metaverse, everything about AI art today. And I'm very pleased to welcome our fellow member on the couch and switch places with Jolly. There we go.
Well, that feels a bit different to be sitting here, but anyway.
It's a different perspective. It is a different perspective. Right.
Definitely.
Oh yeah, let's start it up. AI art, artificial intelligence art. Well, it's quite new, I guess, for many people. So this talk show is targeting people that normally have not a big knowledge background about the metaverse and all these different things that are happening in the metaverse. If it's cryptocurrency or 3D or whatever. And today we like to explain and talk about what is artificial intelligence art? How can we do it? Who is doing that and why? And is it creative? And there are so many different questions. And yes, I'm so happy John is here with us because, John, for how long are you doing AI art?
I've probably been doing it now for about a year. And, I'll talk about some of the applications that I started with and some of the issues that I ran into, some of the pluses and minuses as we move through it. But, it's really been probably a year, a little bit more than over a year that this technology, it's very much like VR, where it's been brewing in the background and all of a sudden it's exploded. And, I think as everyone knows, today you can hardly open up a news source without seeing something about AI art.
I agree. And I
Sure.
actually think that, we're talking about this because it is a hotbed subject right now. Is it art? Is it not art? It's very open to discussion. It's like the metaverse. Everybody has an opinion of it, to what level, and that's why I'm going to be very interested to hear you, educate people a little bit more on this because I think that there's a lot there's a lot to it, and a lot of people are not basing their opinion on all of the information that they need to have of what actually this is. So I'm looking forward to hearing.
No, that's very true.
About
And
this.
we'll get to that. I think the big thing that we need to start with is to, perhaps try to define what art is. And that is part of the problem in that, some people say that art is something created by humans, with the emphasis on humans. And so if something, randomly happens, like a paint can falls off a table and, ends up creating a pattern on the floor that's attractive, that technically isn't art. But to me, that's saying that when you look up at the stars at night, or, it's something else beautiful that hasn't been created by humans, that, how can you say that's not art? So to me, art is anything that is pleasing, that instills feelings, and it doesn't always have to be feelings of joy, but preferably art makes us happy. But I think it can also make us reflect, contemplate, etc. So
Right. What is art? It's such a big question because I think there are so many different types of art. There are so many different types of artists. If they are creating paintings, if they are creating sculptures, if they paint something on a wall or spray something on the wall, or if they do a dance performance. Eric, I mean, it's an art, it's a piece of art, isn't it? You're doing a lot of that, for example. It's another piece of art. So there's so many different perspectives when you think about what is art and how people can express themselves and all these possibilities. And now, well, we are getting to this new form. Like people, I think, have to find a way to connect that from these typical ways of creating art, what art is. This idea is an artificial intelligence able to create real art?
well, it's a good question, Chris, and I think that's the crux of the problem that we're facing here is, I mean, those two, artificial intelligence and real art. And, first of all, I think that the misconception is that artificial intelligence is just all of its own, creating art, where there's a lot more to it than that. And then we get back to the question again of, what is real art? What pleases one? I mean, I've attended many, 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 many art courses as, a requirement at university, I mean, high school, and, found them all really boring. Unfortunately, until I got into AI art, and I've really delved back into some of these artists, and you know, even now, I will have to say that there are certain well-known artists that, I mean, like Rembrandt, for example. I don't really like Rembrandt's art. Okay, I personally, and other artists like him. So, I'm more into realism, surrealism. So, if you ask me, one of my favorite artists would be Dali, Marguerite. To other people, they may look at a painting by Dali and say, "Oh, that's terrible." So, I think it's all in the eyes of
Well,
whoever is, looking at the art. I mean, for example, a banana that is taped to a wall with duct tape.
it's definitely open to interpretation. But to wrap this slide up, I think art is it's really open to interpretation, and there's no generally agreed definition on what constitutes art. Interpretation has varied greatly throughout the history across cultures. I think we're all, from what you're saying, we're all agreeing 100% on.
Just one
Yeah, I mean,
thing
I
for
think
me to
where the
add to this.
problem, is starting to arise is that, and this is a problem that occurs with, pretty much everything to do with mankind, is that people are scared of change. And that artists, people that do things manually or even by the computer, are looking at AI and saying, wow, I'm going to lose my job. And yes, to a certain extent, one is in danger of losing one's job if one doesn't evolve with the technology. But that applies to all technologies. And if we look back in history, the typesetters, the typists, the telephone operators, I mean, there's hundreds of jobs that have either become redundant or changed. And that is the problem, is people are afraid of change. I've had a number of artists that are, totally down on AI and, look at it as being evil. And, you know, what we need to be looking at AI as is a tool. For example, recently I've used AI to develop concept art. I wrote an article to show how a journalist could create AI art very quickly just to illustrate concepts rather than, go into a click art library. And so, I think AI art will replace click art, for example. So if I was a click art company, I would be concern. But it also creates opportunities for people to create that click art. So, as people know, I think there's always a need for content. So it gives us more tools to create content.
Definitely, definitely. And just to get to the next slide, in this case, we are talking about the evolution of art. And you said it already. For you, artificial intelligence in this case is a tool. When we take a look on our bullet points, we see that, for example, the evolution that we know art from going from using a paintbrush or using lip art or photography. All these things, technologies are in a certain flow in history, uh, has been getting better or more sophisticated. The more technology was involved. We had classic photography using film. Today we have digital photography, but still we have the same way of photographing, of creating a picture, having a field of view and creating depths in our images and so on. So all these things are always evolving, and we, as you say, have to take the chances. We have to see where are the benefits of the new technology, and what else can we do with it to express ourselves, to make our art better, or create our ideas and so on. So the evolution is just moving on.
Yeah, you bring up a really good point about photography. As a photographer, I've seen the evolution of photography, and at a number of points during that evolution, I've said to myself, "Oh gosh, I'm going to be out of a job. We're going to be replaced by all kinds of technologies that have come along," and that's just not true. And to me, the very interesting thing about AI is generative AI in terms of generating images. Let's be specific. Is that it's very like photography in that with photography, there's nothing to say that 100 people can't go and take a picture of the same. And so with generative AI, thousands of people aren't prevented from trying to create the same image. And so there's going to be, some similarities, but it's going to be those people that have really refined this art that are going to create the killer images. And the other similarity between photography and AI is that one of the first things that I learned as a photojournalist was that film is cheap. Shoot as many pictures as you can because you will get some good pictures. And
The
that
thing,
is true with AI, where you basically create sometimes, I've created sometimes hundreds of images looking for a particular look, and I've just not found it, after maybe the 105th image. And it's like, okay, finally I've got it. And that also reminds me of the darkroom. So, there's a lot of parallels here between photography and AI. And the last one I'll just throw in here that I've been finding fascinating and really haven't done any myself, but for example, on Midjourney, and we'll talk about that later, I've been rating images, and I think I've rated like 130,000 images on Midjourney so far, which gives me the advantage of having seen all of these images, but also having seen the prompts. And one of the series of images that I really enjoy is that someone's doing food. So, hamburger and fries or, steak and whatever. But it looks so realistic that, if someone came to me and said, we want you to shoot, a plate of whatever for an article on, nutrition, I would probably say no. It's not worth the hassle to set up the equipment to, have someone cook the food. I could do probably a better job using AI. And so, again, it comes down to it's a tool. And it's not replacing the photographer. It's just giving the photographer or an artist something else they can use.
Just to add to this, the question, as you said, you are using AI art for 1 year now. How many images did you create yourself? Yet?
I would probably guess that it's over 100,000. I know, specifically on Midjourney, I have created up to today 46,000 images.
Just on
And
that
In a
one
year.
platform.
In a
just
year, is
on
that?
that one platform, yeah, 46,000, I'm trying to get to
Nearly,
50 in the next week or so. So
nearly 1,000 images a week. That is mighty quick for image creation.
no, it's I would say 1,000 images every couple of days.
Every couple of days. Oh,
Yeah,
well,
because
that's
I mean
even
I've only
quicker.
been on Midjourney for gosh, what, 6 months now. So
So,
one has
John,
to.
what would you say, getting to the next one, before we go to the misconceptions about this with, I see the first thing is no photo bashing. When Chris was talking about, us going from film to digital, it's like I think people just embraced, like it was like at first alarming, but then people did embrace it to where it's like, okay, a digital image is even less than what film is because you could just, and I feel like it actually at that point film wasn't expensive for people, so it made people be able to do more because all you had to do was clear your card and then you could take more photos. But could you go over the misconceptions here? I'm seeing use of diffusion technology, and this looks like a pretty technical graph over here. So could you, I think that this is
Yeah,
something to
we'll cover
tackle.
that quickly, and I think that's part of the problem here is that people think that AI art is all about photo bashing. And for those of you that don't know, photo bashing basically is taking parts of a photograph in Photoshop or another image editing um, application and mixing it together. And I personally don't think there's anything wrong with that. I also think that's creative. I think that's creating art. But for whatever reason, the purists out there have decided to get down on everything, even though they themselves are probably using Photoshop and whatever. But so one of the big misconceptions is that the way that AI art, well, and I should say that the current AI art works is that it takes images and it takes part of the images and just forces them together, but it bashes them together. And that's not how this technology works. This technology is relatively new and is based on diffusion. Basically, what happens is that a model is created by AI looking at millions of images, and we'll actually move to a slide in a minute talking about that. But it's using something called diffusion to create the images, where what happens is it takes that image and the text tag associated with that image. So it knows something about the concept of that image and then creates or turns that image into noise. And when it recreates the image, it knows that an X level of noise represents a particular concept. And so basically starts building on that concept. So, it doesn't take, if I say, a cat sitting on a table, it doesn't look for, let's see what images I have of a table, what images I have a cat, and just jam those together. It creates something completely different.
Sounds like
So
magic.
basically, somehow, so basically, as you said, it's something like a noise is created. It's like a very deep analysis of the content and storing that in a kind of structure, not as pixels, right? So it's something else that the AI keeps in mind. Is that correct?
Right. The AI basically interprets the image into noise. So it looks at a particular image and it creates pure noise out of that image. And so it's storing the representation of that noise in this
So this
particular
noise,
model.
right? So the noise, it is a structure that the AI can use, can work with.
Correct. Correct. You know, I guess the other complaint that artists are making is that there's some image scraping going on. You know, some companies aren't doing it legitimately, and so they're just sticking bots out there and grabbing everything under the sun that they can get hold of. And yeah, I mean,
That
if you
sound
get, go ahead.
oh, that sounds like Napster back in the day when music was first like released to the masses. They're just with people with terabytes of music. They just downloaded everything under the sun. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, we're starting to see a similar thing happen like that with models. And so, you know, those of you that don't know what a model is, basically the model is the brain of the AI art engine. And with some of these applications like Stable Diffusion, which we'll talk about in a little bit, you can actually add models to it. But the problem that we're seeing now is that these models are becoming so popular that they can be infected with a virus, because what better way to, you know, get viruses to people when you find something that's really popular and people are searching for stuff to download. So
Shame on
So
those people.
just definitely, that's really bad. Just to try to go into those different steps. When somebody has no idea about AI and how this AI is going to create art, you can say there is the training. So that means millions, maybe billions of pictures will be fed this AI. And as we said before, each and every single image will be analyzed by the AI and a noise will be created. So there will be a lot of noise in the end, a lot of data in this AI will be stored somewhere on a server probably. So these are the first steps. Do we know how many pictures were fed into a normal AI today? Midjourney, for example, is there a number?
you know, that's an interesting question, because Midjourney is very proprietary, or becoming very proprietary, and so getting information out of them about exactly what they've been doing and how they're moving forward is difficult. A lot of these companies have built their platform on Stable Diffusion, which is to a large part open source. You know, people have modified that as well, and you know, hopefully are sticking by the license. You know, if
And
you
it,
take a look at this slide here, you know, this data set here, I think, is like 5 billion images, and
Okay, that's a lot.
you know, but that
it is.
also doesn't. I mean, it's like all businesses, right? To me, if someone says, "Yeah, we're not scraping the web," you know, I assure you, we're not doing it. You know, to me, it's like, yeah, perhaps you're not, but you know,
Are
um,
are are you ready to show Stable Diffusion in action? You want to break down like what's you've explained it pretty well, but we've got this next slide that's going to actually show it in action.
so yeah, I mean, this is just showing, you know, the diffusion technology. I mean, this is, and I'll talk about this a little bit more. But I mean, as you can see there, the image starts off with, you know, a blur, and then builds up, and you know, this is speeded up. But this is just used really as an illustration of the diffusion technology. So let's move to the next slide. So, you know, as I mentioned, you know, I've been doing this for a while, and started off with, you know, a couple of desktop applications. One was NightCafe, which at the time, you know, really didn't do a great job. It was also expensive. I then switched to a couple of apps on my Android phone, and actually, you know, got a lot of mileage out of those apps. The first one as you'll see, we have it up here actually, is Dream by WOMBO. And it's a interesting little app. I believe it's still free, although I think you can sign up for, special styles for $8 a year. I mean, it's very, very inexpensive. But Dream just didn't do the job that I was looking for it to do, and so I then moved to another app that, gosh, I probably generated about 5,000 images with this app, Starryai. And that is available on a cell phone and on, cell phone on an Android and a iPhone. And Starryai has some pretty good capabilities. The advantage of Dream, by the way, is that Dream has a business model that you can create the AI art, and if you like what you're seeing, you can push a button and order a print of that AI art. Starry AI allows you to do multiple prompting. It has styles. It allows you to do upscaling. The big issue with Starry AI, however, is that it's expensive if you do a lot of images. So, for 1,000 images, if I remember correctly, it was $79 per 1,000 images. And as I was mentioning to Jolly, I mean, if I get on a roll, I can do 1,000 images in a couple of days. So I'm very, very thankful to Midjourney for their relax mode, because had I spent that money either on Dolly or another AI, and I'm already getting dirty letters from Google about not signing up for their service and using too much free GPU time. But anyway, that's another story. So, these are art generation apps that you can get on your cell phone that, I would highly recommend. If you haven't experimented with AI, start with Dream. As I say, it's not that wonderful in terms of, if you compared it to Midjourney. But, ultimately, it gives you what we have on the slide here now is the ability to practice, right? And what this is about, in my opinion, is practice. And, if you're paying to practice, it can get expensive, because writing good prompts is an art. In fact, there's jobs being created for prompt masters, people that, a writer or whatever set designer could come to that prompt master and say, I need images that show a concept of, XYZ. And, a couple of hours later, they've got a whole set of images, where in the normal world with an artist, that might take weeks. So, again,
So, John, it
the
seems
prompt.
that the intelligence in AI art is performing billions and billions of calculations in a fraction of a second. Come up with images so quickly.
and
It's
that's the
mind-boggling how fast it all is being calculated and created at.
no, extremely so, Dolly, and that's one of the things that I find fascinating about AI. When it comes to text generation, for example, one of the things that I found is that AI has more knowledge of the world than a single human being, and so can create some, very interesting products, be they text or images. But let's go on with this. We were talking about prompt craft, right? So the key to writing or generating good images is being able to write good prompts. And unfortunately, I often hear from people that they're having trouble, that they ask, I see all these beautiful images out there, how they done. I try to do them and can't. And my advice to people is to do what I mentioned earlier. Start rating images. Go to Midjourney. Go to some of these other places. Look at the images that other people have created. Look at the prompts. Study the prompts.
Be an art critic. Be a critic of the art. I think
Definitely.
everyone wants to be safe. Like, let's be more critical. I think it's people, in both good and bad. If you think a piece of art is good, you should be able to say it's good. If you think it's bad, you should be able to say that this piece of art is no good, and people should not be offended. It's like everything can't just always be good. That's not going to inspire people to be better if something is not good. So.
No, exactly. It also helps train the model. So if more people are voting on a particular style, that style will become recognized as good, if you will. Basically, what we try to do here is we said, okay, let's generate a logo for the virtual film company. And, I see this as being a place that AI can shine right now. As you'll see, it's not great with text, but to show some of the various applications out there, I started with Dolly and, just put a simple prompt in here, a film company in virtual reality, I think it is. And, that's very, very simple. And that's normally how I start, is just by putting a simple prompt in and seeing what the application makes of that prompt, because each one of these acts slightly differently. So I got that prompt, and that image wasn't really happy with it, and then went into Midjourney and started playing around with it. And as you can see, the logo images that I developed in Midjourney for the virtual film company, I personally think are actually pretty cool. So, other than the text, of course, but that could be fixed with a little bit of work.
So, if we see those logos that you created, the prompt is a line of text that you gave to the artificial intelligence, and that line of text was?
In this case, just okay. So could you the text in Dolly, right? When I pulled it into Midjourney, I started adding additional prompts to it, and so I don't exactly remember what it was, but it had other things in there like line drawing, um, illustration, logo.
Okay.
The more you can describe what you're doing, the better off your success will be.
So for the people that haven't used that yet, point is you started with the prompt like a film company in virtual reality, and then you added more and more stylistic text elements like style drawing as a line, maybe painted like with a brush or things like that. So you can give more details to the AI to get the result that you want.
No, exactly. And that is the art of writing a good prompt, is being able to put all of these words in the correct order that the AI understands. And unfortunately, each one of these understands words a little bit differently. For example, with the latest Midjourney model, the V4 model, it tends to key off the first couple of words and then give a very low priority to anything after that. It's limited to 40 words. One can create interesting effects, but the great thing is that you may decide to do a image in a particular style. I think as we were playing around yesterday in a chalk style, and then decide no, we want to change that to oils, and it gives you that flexibility to do that. So yeah.
I believe the apps themselves are getting much more efficient as time goes on, in clearer images and less blur. And I believe one or two do animation as well now. and I assume it will continue to improve as time goes on.
Yeah, this is very much, it reminds me of the early days of the where every few days or every week or so, and to be realistic, there seems to be a new development. And clarity is one of the big things that everyone is working on now, to make the images much clearer, much sharper. The main issue that I think we face with products like Stable Diffusion and things like that is that they create smaller images than most people would like, and are also Stable Diffusion runs. Well, it actually runs on the desktop. On a desktop, they also have a web-based version as well. But
And we have Midjourney up next. As we talk about all this prompts though and everything like that, it just can't help me. I always am thinking about Google, and when I'm searching for something, the less detail you put in that search bar, you're going to get thousands. The more specific you can be, the more accurate you're going to get with what you're doing. And I think that relates to like just people in general. So Midjourney,
no, it
you've
does,
mentioned.
and one of the things that occasionally one will find is that you start getting a lot of text in your generations, and so that brings up the topic of negative prompts. I mean, we have positive prompts in that these are the things that we want to happen, but we also have to have negative prompts which exclude certain things. And so one negative prompt would be no text, no banners, no logos.
Yeah. So Midjourney, this is your favorite. I think you've brought this up multiple times. I know we've got multiple slides to go through. I don't know if you want to give like a 30-second on, or just briefly talk on Midjourney. I mean, if you've mentioned them, but if you had like
Yeah,
the plug, what would that
Midjourney
be?
is my favorite image generation application. It runs on the Discord server, and it is very reasonably priced if you look at it. So the model that Midjourney has is a community model, and if you sign up for their basic plan, which I believe is something like $20 a month, you can generate a certain number of images. But Midjourney makes a facility available to people called relaxed mode. And relaxed mode basically means that you're not being charged any GPU time for creating images. And so you pay your monthly subscription, $20, $30. Again, I don't remember exactly how much it is, but if you're in relaxed mode, you can basically make as many images as desires. The only downside is that it takes a little bit of time to create the images as you're put in the back of the queue. But I've really never found a problem with it, because my workflow basically is put in prompts, and the Midjourney queue is 13 images, which is one of the downsides of it. But I just queue up 13 images, do something else, queue up another 13, do something
And
else.
you've talked on Stable Diffusion a lot, so I don't know if you could give us like a 30-second to a minute. We're just running short on time, so if you give us like a 30-second to a 1 minute on
I mean, Midjourney,
Stable
as I said,
Diffusion.
pay-to-play program application. You can get privacy mode on Midjourney for another, I think $20 a month. I pay $50 a month basically for privacy and unlimited generation. But it's a server-based model where what they're doing is renting out server farms, and all that GPU power is in the background. You can't run it locally. The advantage to Stable Diffusion is that you can run it on a fairly good gaming machine. It does take a little bit of technical knowledge. It's not something that everybody's going to be able to do. You need to install various packages to get it to work. You need to be familiar with GitHub. And as I said, for people that the Stable Diffusion is owned by a British company, and they do have a web portal as well. But the web portal is very much like DALL-E, in that you get to put one prompt in, and that's it. The big advantage of Stable Diffusion running on a local machine is, one, you don't have to pay anyone, you have to pay electricity, obviously, to run your machine. But other than that, you can also do batch generation. You could have a batch of a couple of hundred running, and again, running this stuff in the background is sometimes the best way to do it, because it can take a while. And so you end up with a whole batch of images, and then you can go through this batch of images and select them. And so that, is a
So,
big advantage of Stable Diffusion.
1 second, just again, for all the people that haven't been involved with it yet. You type in one prompt with several different things you want the AI to create, and this one prompt will now result in a batch of 5, 10, 16, whatever amount of different images. So how does it work that you get so different images from the same line of text, from the same description?
Okay, so what you're doing is you're adding a seed value. So every image uses the same text prompt, but uses a unique seed. And you can also add additional switches, if you will, to these. I mean, chaos, for example, is one where you're basically telling the AI to introduce unknown noise, if you into the image, and take over. There's also ability to fine tune how much attention it pays to what you've actually typed in there as a prompt, how it's going to interpret the prompt. There, as you mentioned, you can invoke the name of an artist, which will apply a style. Each one of these has Stable Diffusion has a notation style that is very different to Midjourney. Right now, with Midjourney, probably the downside, although in many ways I think it's actually a plus side, is that it's evolving so quickly that Midjourney has come out and said, what you guys are doing today, you probably won't be able to do next month, because the whole model will have changed. And
Yeah,
to me,
it's
that's
totally
really cool, because that means that it's really totally unique, even more unique than before. Yeah, so in painting is a Stable Diffusion and DALL-E have, where it enables you to basically, as you see in that image, I've painted out a picture frame in black, and in the left image, and then on the right image, I've put in another prompt, and I think I used frog, and so a frog is then integrated into that area that I paint out. This is another version of Stable Diffusion, and this answers Jolly's question in terms of video creation. For people that are interested in video creation, Forum Stable Diffusion is the app, or application is actually a notebook. I guess that's the correct term to use, but one will, in most cases, be ending up having to deal with Google. And then lastly, we have Dream Booth. And Dream Booth basically enables you to create your own model. And so if you look at this illustration that we have up here, using dogs, you could take many photographs of your dog, feed it into Dream Booth, and then you could do something like, have a prompt that says, my dog in the front of the Acropolis, my dog in front of the grocery store, or whatever, and you will
awesome.
have your dog as part of that model.
John, thank you for this is a huge topic, and you really, I feel like, did a great job of going through, and it's been great having you guys here today.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your week, and
John.
We'll be back
And
here
John,
next
in
week.
closing, like we created a gallery of intentions as well, where it's like images that had meaning behind it, heart-stopping abundance, um, just several different emotions that would invoke created by those images, and aligning with people what communicates with them. And there was definitely some power that came out of those. And yes, this art. So thank you. Thank you for what you do. And, you are now I'm leaving this with knowing John is a master art critic at rating over 100,000 images. Yes. Congratulations, sir.
100%.
Well, as I said, it's also a learning experience, and that's the way to learn, is to, look at what other people have done, what prompts they've used, and figure it out from there. Good. Well, thank you.
100%.
Have a great week. Cheers,
Thank
everyone.
Thank you,
guys.
everybody.